Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers get thumped in Chicago and D'Angelo Russell has disappeared. That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. It's always free and never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 22,000 subscribers are currently flipping out and are angry at what is going on with the Lakers, as well they should be. They get thumped again, 124-108 in Chicago. This time, the first of a long stretch of games where the Lakers almost exclusively are playing, playoff caliber teams. Even Memphis, Andy, now has Ja Morant back. So that gimme might not be so good in a couple weeks.
And by the way, the Bulls, ever since Zach LaVine has been shelved, the now 12-17 Bulls after this win against the Lakers, they are 7-3. Since Zach LaVine has been shelved. So for all intents and purposes, they are playing like a playoff team. And also, this has done nothing to this period for the Bulls has done nothing to either reassure Laker fans, because they just lost. It's done nothing to bump Zach LaVine's trade value. If anything, it is making his empty calories reputation, fair or not, look that much more accurate. And
as David Fizdale might say, take that for data.
Yeah. I mean, the Bulls, for all intents and purposes, are playing as well as anybody the Lakers might face right now.
Yeah. It just doesn't get easier for the Lakers. Nope. They're in Minnesota tonight against the best team in the Western Conference that has lost one game at home all season. They are on the second night of a back-to-back, so as are the Lakers. So at least there's that the Lakers can look forward to. But, there is so much to unpack from this game. Anthony Davis talking in the locker room said some really interesting stuff. Darvin Ham had some interesting things to say. Gabe Vincent returned, which continues, just to be another factor that is influencing their rotations and just the lack of continuity. But in a lot of ways, Andy, while we often kind of look big picture and then drill down into the specifics, so many of the specifics about this game and where the Lakers are lead back to D'Angelo Russell, whether it is sort of symbolic or in the case of D'Lo and his production on Wednesday, like as you like to call them, the tangibles. 2 points. The first time since 2017, as our friend Dan Wojcicki of the LA Times pointed out, that D'Lo played more than 20 minutes and only scored 2 points, 2 points, 2 assists. And
he was a Laker then too, by the way, in 2017.
Oh, I forgot.
So he's come full circle.
Yeah, it's a circle of life, Andy.
Circle of hell is what it is.
It's a terrible circle.
Yeah,
but it's funny. I spent so much of this game watching D'Lo because I spent a lot of my day being yelled at as a D'Lo apologist. So I'm like, what? I mean, obviously we've talked about it on the show. He's not playing well, but I'm like, I want to see what is going on here. And first shift that he had was sort of sucked up by LeBron James. LeBron came out hot. And I want to talk about this later in the show. The Lakers did not come out flat and complacent in this game. They didn't play well, but that's a different question. And so D'Lo, very inactive in that first stint, picked up 2 early fouls, which influenced his ability to play, comes back and he's sort of in the flow of things and he's kind of making passes and helping the Lakers offense to the extent that it ever could be helped. But that swagger, Andy, that defined D'Lo's play at the beginning of the year when he was like one of their best players.
And defines D'Lo when he's at his best, period.
Correct. the confidence, the swagger, quite frankly, the things that annoy the bleep out of a lot of fans, it is gone. 100% disappeared. If there's one thing that sticks out about Russell's play right now, it's not indifference. It's not, it is the total lack of swagger in his game and his body language and it is startling to see, and it needs to stop fast.
Yeah, he spent this entire game very clearly not looking for his shot. He took the first shot of the game for the Lakers and then spent most of it very clearly not looking for a shot, but also not aggressive as a playmaker either. I mean, I know when you and I were talking back and forth, you had mentioned where if you dug deep, you could track some hockey assists and things like that. And fine, I'm not looking to dispute the importance of any of that stuff on, like, I guess either a granular or a big picture level. But at the same time, D'Angelo Russell is not meant to be a connective player on this team. Like, not in the way.
Absolutely.
Right. It's similar to how Austin Reeves talked about in that great piece, the profile Miran Fader wrote about him for The Ringer, how LeBron told him, you're too good at this point to be counted on for the little things. We don't look for you to do that anymore. We look for you to do the big things. The Lakers look for D'Angelo Russell to do the big things, and watching him in this game, and increasingly over the last couple of weeks, and if you want to read into this, and I don't think it's necessarily unfair to read into it, basically since D'Angelo became trade eligible, and somebody like D'Lo in particular has spent basically his entire career on the block. Like, D'Lo has been moved a lot. He has been signed, presumably to be traded. He has been traded to eventually get traded later. He has had contracts set up with the express purposes now at least twice that I can think of off the top of my head, that being traded is a part of that equation. So if people think that this has been triggered to some, if not a large degree, by the December 15th.
Right. I mean, to be fair,
passing.
like, that deadline itself, the literal deadline is less than a week old, but the chatter around the deadline certainly started picking up at the beginning of the month.
Right. Exactly. So I'm saying, if people want to read into that, I can't say with certainty that is what's causing it, but I don't think it's an unfair reading, or I don't think people are being wild about this. But what jumps out at me watching D'Lo over the last handful of games, his body language and his demeanor and his approach remind me a lot of how he looked in that Memphis series, when you could see that he was just a shell of himself and that he had lost confidence. And he often looks now like a player that is, especially in this game against the Bulls, who's honestly just trying to stay out of the way. And that's a bad.
And that's a perfect way of, because, like, when I'm talking about the stuff that we were talking about before, and I mentioned earlier in the segment, I don't mean it to say that he's playing well. And what stuck out to me is, like, okay, making the pass, flowing long, a couple good passes to AD, find the skip pass, whatever. But it is a passive form of usefulness. It is not.
It's like the Hippocratic oath: first do no harm.
Right. And it's, he's not, I think, because there was, a stretch where he was sort of playing aggressively and playing poorly, where, he's over dribbling and he's putting himself into space where it's, how did you get here? And what are you doing here with the ball? And that was a terrible turnover. And what are you doing? But, like, that is the price of quality play from Russell. It is the price of quality play from most point guards. And the Lakers have been without a point guard for so long because it's LeBron, or they were just sort of point guard.
Kobe was the point guard of the Lakers for all intents and purposes.
Right. They don't played without a traditional point guard for virtually, the last 2.5 decades. And so
it was either Kobe or Odom during that period. Like, it sure as hell wasn't Derek Fisher.
It was not. And so you lose, I think, to some degree, you sort of lose that, like, the price that you pay for elevated point guard play is often some moments where it looks really bad or the decision making looks really bad. But overall, the package with D'Lo is really strong at the beginning of the year. And so when he's just kind of passively moving the ball and not forcing the issue with his shot, which isn't going in, which is part of the reason he's not doing it, not forcing his way to the basket because he probably was, over dribbling and then, am I too much, too little? I want to get out of the way, like you say. But Anthony Davis said something after the game that ties again into the impact that Russell has on this team that I think is critical and is worth talking about. We'll do it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by eBay Motors, and our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed to fit your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for this week's eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. How about Tari Eason coming off the bench for the Houston Rockets? Ime Udoka increasing his minutes, and he's become a very strong fantasy value per minute. Also, and this is going on a limb a little bit for Josh, but James Wiseman in Detroit, Isaiah Stewart's hurt. You got to play somebody in the middle. So take a flyer on James Wiseman. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being the perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. There's nothing worse than having your car break down in real time. I have dealt with it a couple different places in my life, and it is awful. And I rue that eBay Motors was not a thing at that time. It was a long time ago, thankfully. But with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. They've got all sorts of different stuff, LED headlights, brake kits, bumpers, all the things that you will need. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
So look, there is the sort of micro D'Lo specific stuff. Like, as much I love, will defend D'Lo as, when appropriate. This does not work. And he needs to be better. The Lakers are depending on him to be better. They're getting what they need from Austin Reeves these days. Anthony Davis is still working his tail off, despite the fact that he is held together clearly by duct tape and chewing gum after hurting his ankle again on Wednesday.
Yeah, and he has, by the way, the schedule allows absolutely no time for proper treatment, which AD acknowledged after the game.
Rub some dirt on it. That's basically what we're doing here.
Part of the reason why Jared Vanderbilt can't ever get right either.
Right, and all of that. So AD, though, after the game, said something that I thought was really interesting. He said, among other things, we need to get back to having fun and enjoying playing. Now, look, I'm not enjoying watching the Lakers since the IST finals, and I can't imagine that they've enjoyed playing, having lost 4 of 5, generally speaking, by double digits, and generally speaking, playing very poorly even when they've been competitive. But D'Lo is such a big part of the fun factor, the enthusiasm factor that this team has. When you go back from the tangibles now to the intangibles, it's another reason that this sort of disappearing D'Angelo Russell swagger is really important for this team.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully playing the Timberwolves tonight, D'Lo's old team, they traded into the Lakers. I would presume he will get booed during this game. Maybe that juices him a little bit. Reminder that the Lakers are playing the Timberwolves tonight, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Ant Edwards, Wolves are the number 1 team in the Western Conference. You can catch every Lakers game on the hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search Lakers. Yeah, it is hard. First of all, it's hard to have fun with a lot of these games when, by all accounts, and nobody's even hiding it at this point, they are exhausted. They are really tired. And as much as I don't think they are dogging it, I don't think they're mailing it in, anything like that, if you injected these guys with True Serum right now and said, do you feel like playing basketball right this second? I think across the board, the answer would be
Or like,
no.
or how about this? How much of that 500K would you give back for, I don't know, 7 days off?
However you want to phrase it.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's I think like
Maxwell Lewis is saying none of it.
Well, Maxwell Lewis isn't tired.
Yeah,
the other guys are.
That's true. That's true.
Colin Castleton's like, take your hands off my money. I'll go play. I'll play as many games in a row as you want. You know,
like, I mean, screw these tired guys, man. It's every man for himself.
Right. Alex Fudge is rearing ready to go, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it is difficult, I'm sure, for these guys to actually get into the space where having fun is possible because A, they're not playing well enough to have the fun, and B, they're exhausted. And, you know, these guys live, breathe, sleep basketball. They love it. But I don't care what you do for a living and how much you love it. Everybody doesn't feel like going to work now and then. Like, everybody. I don't care what the dream job is. These guys right now look like a team that I think wouldn't mind, like, all of a sudden discovering, you know what, next week's been canceled. We're giving you guys like you get to be 500 during this week.
Oh, they take that in a heart.
Yeah,
but it's like when you have to go to work, and you know that, you know, for normal people, it's like, oh God, like I got 17 presentations and my boss is going to just crush me. Or like, we're going to work. I know these financial reports that are coming are going to be terrible, or like whatever it is. Like, bottom line, like I'm going to work and I get my ass kicked when I get there. And I know I'm going to get my butt kicked, right? Like I have no confidence that I'm going to go in and just crush work this week. That's what the Lakers look like. And so, you know, like I said, I think they came out in this game. LeBron was as aggressive at the start of this game on Wednesday as he has been in any game this season. The Lakers
scored the first 7 points of the game for the Lakers. 2 of them were on drives, and then 1 of them was a 3.
The Lakers were, you know, bouncing around. They were working hard. But what happens is Chicago, as you mentioned, now 7-3 without Zach LaVine, you know, go trade deadline. They hit a couple threes. They get going a little bit. They do whatever. And the Lakers have no counterpunch to that because they cannot shoot. The offense is in horrible state. I mean, I know people are focusing on the defense. I think their bigger problem is they can't score. And then because the offense operates so poorly, they're not set defensively. They're discouraged. And every time, when you are playing in a sport and the minute the other team pushes and you have no response, it sucks all the air out of the balloon. And that's why they look, disaffected. They look like it's like, no, they care. They are playing so poorly. They're confused. They're a step slow. Everybody's pressing. Nobody's sure what to do. No, it's like everything that goes wrong goes wrong. And that's where they are mentally and physically right now and why they're getting run off the floor.
Yeah, and Derek Fisher said something I thought really interesting during the Spectrum Sportsnet postgame show, part of the Lakers television program and the broadcast partners. And he noted how 8 different Bulls scored in double figures. And while obviously to some degree that is indicative of the things that were not working defensively, and I think also the Bulls, they were unconscious during this game, and especially as things went along and they started feeling better and better.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of guys just entered a zone where they couldn't miss. But what Fisher pointed out, and I think this is really true and it's something we've talked about before, I think we both separately tweeted about this during the game at Cam Brothers. The Lakers offense right now just seems rudderless in terms of just like purpose. And what are you doing out there, and connection with each other? And they either take way too long to get into their sets, or it's just like helter-skelter chaos that looks like it's being made up on the fly with wild passes. And then you contrast that to the way the ball was just whipping around for Chicago with a lot of purpose, which gives guys better shots and also makes it harder for even a team that can be really good like the Lakers defensively to actually stop. And the Lakers, they've had their offensive struggles this whole year, but right now it's just the cohesion or lack thereof is just startling at times with this team. And it's something, frankly, Darvin needs to figure out how to get everybody back on the same page. And this is beyond just make shots. Like they need to get back to basics in some way and just figure out, what are you guys actually doing while you're out there?
Okay. Yes, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I do think there are some, I get 150 tweets a day. Why is Taurean Prince playing so many minutes? It's because he's the only person over 6'4" who could be relied on to hit an outside shot.
Yeah,
it is that simple. He is the only reliable floor spacer they have that has any kind of defensive versatility, who is tall enough to play on the wing. That is why he is playing as much as he is, and he needs to play as much as he is. So I do think there is an element of they need to make more shots.
Sure.
But this gets into something that they talked about after the game that I think is, I don't want to say it's not been discussed, because it has been, but it's when people talk about injuries and they talk about continuity, and the Lakers, a very weird thing has been happening with them this year in terms of continuity and lineup consistency, that I think is worth getting into next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by BetterHelp, and December is in the home stretch. It's a month with a lot of holidays, which can be wonderful for some, but stressful and even depressing for others. And whether it's because family you don't get along with, the economic toll these celebrations can take, it can feel like comparison shopping, like you're keeping up with the Joneses. Sometimes the holidays just don't resonate for certain people, no matter what the reason. Like the act of gift giving itself for many can feel really stressful. Therapy can be a bright spot amid all the anxiety and uncertainty, something to look forward to, make you feel grounded, help you get the tools to manage everything that's going on. I can personally speak to how much therapy helped me during a really difficult period in my life for me and my family, and sitting down and talking with someone was really helpful. BetterHelp has connected over 3 million people with licensed therapists. It's convenient, accessible anywhere, 100% online, no waiting rooms, no traffic. Plus, it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist, and if things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. So if you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can help you get there. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
So because, Andy, I think, LeBron and AD have been relatively healthy. They've played most of the games. Neither one of them has had, any kind of injury that, those 8-game, 10-game, 12-game stretches that we spent a lot of time this preseason saying you have to plan on, you have to assume are coming. But the Lakers as a group have had zero continuity over the course of this season, including Wednesday night when you integrate Gabe Vincent back into the lineup. He played, I just moved the box score. How many minutes did Vincent play tonight?
Vincent played 14 minutes.
14 minutes. First shift was terrible. Second shift, which you would expect, he hasn't played in a long time. Second shift was better. But you're still it's like this disjointed thing where you're constantly putting guys in and out of the lineup, while the performance of some players is obviously impacting Darvin Ham's decision making. It is not I think it's not a coincidence that Christian Wood and Jackson Hayes played a combined 2 minutes in this game, both coming in garbage time at the end. If you've been watching the Lakers Twitter, there have been a lot of clips going around of other players and Darvin Ham seeming very upset with Hayes for being in the wrong place, whether offensively, defensively, or both. And then Wood obviously has been losing playing time for a while. So there has been so much inconsistency and lack of continuity in their lineup. How do you fix that with this group? Because they have so much that they have to figure out in integrating guys. and you want consistency. Darvin talked about it. You want consistency, but you also need to find the right combinations and figure out which, they still are in an experimental phase.
Well, I mean, the first step is not in their control at all. It involves everybody staying healthy. I mean, it took 28 games, this being the 28th, for Darvin Ham to finally have the full complement of players who had any shot whatsoever of being in the rotation realistically. Like Jalen Hood-Schifino was not available for tonight's game, but nobody expects him to be playing this year anyway. But with Vincent back, Darvin has now essentially his full range of choices, minutes restrictions for like half this team, and Rui's mask, like, notwithstanding.
Rui, by the way, played his last minute without the mask.
I know. I actually noticed that too. And I wonder if Rui is reaching a point where he's like, you know what, I'm going to take my chances, because like there was like a minute stretch where Rui almost lost the handle while he was basically, it was like a high dribble essentially right in front of his face, and almost lost it. And then he had a point blank miss that wasn't just didn't go in, like it went long point blank. I'm like, he can't see. Like I really think
whether it's the mask, it's not the, like the mask is clearly psyching him out.
Yes,
it's as if he's playing with the mask that Luke Skywalker trains in on the Millennium Falcon that actually has the shield in front of it where you can't see.
You're supposed to sense everything around you. And like
Rui's trying to use the Force right now, and it's not working.
Like I think he may be reaching a point where he's saying, I'm just gonna risk re-breaking my nose, and then I'm gonna play a whole year with a broken nose and no mask, right? Because I don't give an F anymore. I'm sick of this.
I'm rich and I'm handsome, and if I'm just end up rich because my nose is all bent, that'll be good enough.
My golden doodle Jake accepts me for who I am, but like
he loves me for me.
That dog is adorable, by the way.
It is really adorable.
So cute. And Rui loves that dog. But like, it starts with getting everybody healthy, like to begin with, and consistently on the floor. You know, Austin talked afterwards about how like this is an issue, and they don't get any real time to figure this out other than during games, which is the absolute worst time to be forced with making it all work. He talked about how it's important for guys to really be communicating in between games, on the plane, shoot around, you know, if they, or whatever they film sessions, like whatever, they really need to be talking a lot. Cause he's like, look, this takes some time, but we don't have it. So it's like, even if we haven't figured it out in tonight's game versus Minnesota or Saturday versus OKC, we need to figure it out well enough to win these games. And, you know,
kind of like what they were doing after that 3-5 stretch where they didn't look great, but they were winning.
That was something I actually mentioned in a recent show after the IST. You know, they had one game without LeBron, then they had another game without AD and Reddish and D'Lo, and then I believe Vando may have missed one of those games. And you know, there been a little bit of anticipation that Vincent would be back Monday versus the Knicks. It ends up getting pushed. You know, Vando is on some type of limit. Vincent's on a limit. Rui may or may not be on a limit, or he's just been rendered ineffective because, again, he can't see. But
actually, you know, we've been talking about the offense. I wonder how much it hurts him defensively too, because peripheral vision, whatever it is, teams are attacking him relentlessly right now, both in isolation and on the move. I think that is a big reason he's not playing that much.
Right. And they, you know, I mean, look, I've been an advocate for him playing more. Like they miss him not playing at a high level, you know, in the same way they miss D'Lo not playing at a high level. You know, they need to get back to having fun again. They need to get back to just raising their own energy. Like you said something when we were texting about the game that I thought was interesting about with Reddish. Teams say what you said to me, because I don't want to misphrase it, but then I think it leads to something we're talking about.
Well, I mean, like, are you talking about when I said a couple of things? First of all, Reddish took, I want to say,
not the shot count.
14,
he took a lot of
14 shots tonight, which is too many, you know, for him.
That's not the point.
what I think, what the other thing I mentioned about Reddish that I thought is important is like, he's been such a big force for them defensively. What I think teams are starting to do is rather than allow him to work in space where he Jose Alvarado's you, and all of a sudden he's there and the length, and the athleticism and passing lanes, where they're just attacking him directly.
Right.
And, DeMar DeRozan did a lot. Never like DeMar DeRozan can score in the mid-range against anyone. He does not. I'm not trying to.
And he did in this game against anyone defending him. he abused everyone.
If teams are going to neutralize Reddish by just attacking him one-on-one, the comparison I made was like if you have an all-pro linebacker or Aaron Donald or something, what you'll see sometimes teams do is instead of running at angles, where they can pursue and just blow stuff up, just go directly at them. It is often the most effective thing to do with players like that. If teams are going to neutralize Reddish a little bit in that way, then the Lakers are going to have to adjust with who they put on the floor because Reddish is not a strong enough offensive player. And there are all these evolutions that are happening on the floor at the same time. That with Reddish in particular, I think is part of the why hasn't Cam Reddish caught on thing over the course of his career.
The reason that jumped out at me now, Cam, when he really was coming into his own in this particular style of defense that we were talking about before, we're just blowing bleep up. Not only was it effective and useful for the team, it was fun. That was part of the fun factor that I think has been missing. Like,
it was exciting. It was
right.
Whoa!
It's energizing
thing that we were discovering. Yes,
right. It's energizing on the court. I think it was fun for other guys because you're all of a sudden seeing Cam Reddish, this guy who had a difficult time finding this fit, landing on something that worked, or, Darvin discovering a way to utilize him, or Cam really leaning into this is what we're at. Whatever the explanation or some combination, it was fun. And that's part of the fun that's been missing, as perhaps he's been getting less opportunities to do that because of, okay, this is now part of the scouting report. Go at Cam Reddish this way.
Right, or leave it and then leave him alone. Let Cam Reddish take 14 shots. And he might make a few. Made a couple 3-pointers tonight, but he had 13 points on 14 shots. That is a win for the other team. Even if he makes 3 of 8 from 3, which is not a bad percentage, but 8 3-pointers from Cam Reddish is a win for the other team. Just to wrap this up, what you said about guys, the lack of continuity, and we're talking about Darvin having to figure out rotations, and Reeves saying like you got to win while you figure this stuff out or whatever. The combinations of like Hachimura has underperformed, but I also think as a player, first of all, there's the injury stuff, but also too, I think he is a guy who is still enough of a role player that you need to put him in the right spots for him, and they've struggled to do that this year. I think that is fair to say.
Yeah, LeBron actually, in a tone that I may be reading into this, but when he was talking afterwards,
I heard the same.
He said Rui's minutes have been up and down. The subtext very much felt to me, play him more.
Or pick a lane. Just quit jerking it around. Pick a lane. Come up with some consistency.
I mean, that's his protege.
It is. Russell, to bring it back to the Russell thing, like, Russell's swagger, his attitude, he is not a role player like Rui Hachimura.
No.
That is something that is independent of continuity, independent of rotations, independent of all this other stuff. D'Angelo Russell can go play like D'Angelo Russell should, like he was at the beginning of the year. And he's not. That is, control what you can control. That's something he can control.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't. It's not I am not one of these people that's going to ascribe that to. He doesn't give a bleep, or he doesn't try, or he's too cool for it. No, the dude wants to go out and play well. He takes enormous pride in this stuff. And it was, 3 weeks ago we were talking about how big a deal he was. But like, this is something that he needs to fix, and he can fix, and it is independent of rotations and everything else that's going on. The Lakers can coach him up. They can give him some confidence. But like, that's it. Like, he can fix it. And he needs to, starting, I don't know, how about tonight?
Yeah, where, by the way, the Lakers, again, playing the Timberwolves 6 p.m. Pacific time. Catch every Lakers game on the hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Lakers.
I promise you that we will reach a point again with the Lakers where that will not be a threat. It will be an enticement. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 22,000 subscribers. We will see all of you after the game.